All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to What You Should and Shouldn't Do, Part 5. And in this episode, I talk about what you should and shouldn't do as a billionaire. Now, if you were a billionaire who had enough money to buy a basketball team that was embroiled in all kinds of issues, I've already talked about some things that you should not do. But what you should do is make sure that you follow through on the promises that people can literally turn on their podcasts and be like, yeah, I remember you saying that. You didn't do that, or you did do that. And you should make sure that your attorneys, internal and external, and your head of HR, you should make sure that they're all telling the truth so that you don't get to somewhere like this with someone like me, where I can talk about you guys and just call out the things that you haven't done and mostly what you haven't done correctly. But what you should do if you were a billionaire is make sure that there's nothing funny with your money. I mean, if I were a billionaire, I would make sure that there was nothing funny with my money. I would make sure I wouldn't have to pay money to anybody I don't need to. I would make sure that I mediated issues before they blew up out of control. If I were a billionaire, again, it just keeps coming back to that due diligence part. I would do my due diligence. And if I were to spend money on a private investigator, for example, or other people that you know that have access to systems where people can do things, you should at least do a good job and make sure that there's nothing funny with your money. So if one private investigator, for example, comes back and says that they didn't find anything, should you spend more money on another one? Should you keep spending more money just because someone like me comes out publicly and starts talking and makes you guys look like you're incompetent and that you just really thought you would get through things with your name and your power and your resources? See, I wouldn't even be able to be here and do this at all if you had gotten me to sign an NDA because you came correctly and apologized and settled this out of court. I wouldn't be able to talk about this at all if your people in your organization had done things the right way and hadn't lied. Because if you sue me for defamation, then you're going to have to prove how all this stuff is true and how all the people in your organization, especially the ones I mentioned in my previous videos, you're going to have to prove that they're telling the truth. And you're going to have to prove that I'm lying. I mean, I kind of would love that, but hey, whatever. We're here, aren't we? So if I were a billionaire, I would make sure that I stay a billionaire and keep my money by making sure that my money isn't funny and that my money is not doing funny things or not so funny things to people that don't deserve it just because you feel like you can, just because you feel like you have connections in high places. So instead of continuing to spend money on a law firm after the previous one, I don't know, did they walk away from you? I'm not sure. Um, I would not keep spending money on different law firms to get the conclusion and the result that I want. And if I were a billionaire, I 1000% would never put myself in a position where I'd have to pay anyone bulk sums of money because the people that were supposed to handle all of this were either incompetent or they lied or they're just corrupt, allegedly, everything's alleged. But you did keep spending money and you did keep finding out that I am who I say I am and that I'm not lying and that I'm not on drugs and that I was never in any CPS cases or investigations. Those are the things that you got from the criminals in that other court case. And I know that as a billionaire, you wouldn't sign off on that, would you? Would you? I guess we'll find out. See?